Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back your lovely faces to a brand new video here on the channel. Today we are going to be looking at a brand new article regarding Mr. Wootton. So, again, everyone has declined to comment on this, which we all knew that was going to happen. But the Byline Times, they have actually put out a new article. It's not actually on the website just yet, but this is actually the subscription part. As I said, I would show you guys. Now, it's quite a few pages, so obviously we've already been through this one because of how the reaction to the media, you know, they didn't want to touch it, the media didn't. And the way Dan Wootton went on his show and literally rallied the troops, that's probably the best way to describe what he did. And then obviously he was trying to tell everyone, they're after us at GB News. They're trying to take this channel down. No, they're trying to take you down and make you be held responsible for the crimes that they are accusing you of. But we had that one there. Then we had this one by here, where he was a serial bully at The Sun, where, remember now, more than 7 people have actually now come forward and said, yes, this is what he's done. We spoke with him regarding X, Y, and Z. And obviously The Sun and the Daily Mail at this moment in time are still coming forward with their investigation. But I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But then we also had his first victim when he was pretending to be someone called Martin Branning. Then we had he was paying adult stars for the catfishing videos with The Sun's money, remember. And then you had that the Mail Online and The Sun, they hid his claims, which is absolutely just disgusting. And as you can see by here where they say about the Hugh Edwards situation, which again, that was absolutely disgusting of what they were doing. We are going to zoom in for you when we get to the actual article, because I know that this is just, it's too zoomed out. But yeah, the Hugh Edwards incident, GB News, people on there, The Sun, the Daily Mail, they were all going on and they were literally blasting Hugh Edwards for doing something that literally was not a crime, because it was between 2 consenting adults. What Wootton has been accused of was not between consenting adults, hence the blackmail and the voyeurism. But then we also found out about how Murdoch made a monster, because we had Alex Truby, this gentleman by here who used to be Dan Wootton's boyfriend at the time, is the one who found the hard drive with all these things on. But then we had Dan Wootton and Martin Branning, the proof. And then we had the reality TV stars. You know, we've gone through so many things on this, and it's just crazy how the Daily Mail, The Sun, and all these other places are still not coming out with anything against Dan Wootton. Hence why a lot of us, myself included, thinks that Dan Wootton has stuff on people there. But then we also found out that the chief executive of GB News, he's actually paid off victims. And he's also faced SH allegations himself. But the one we're on about, ladies and gentlemen, is this one by here. The story behind the story. The bizarre dark art of the Wootton scandal. They say that at the core of investigative journalism is something somebody somewhere doesn't want you to know. And when Dan Evans and Tom Latcham outlined to me in the investigations they had already done into Dan Wootton 6 months or so ago, it seemed extraordinary that the story had been hidden from the public for so long. For over 3 years, they'd both been looking for allegations that The Sun's former celebrity columnist was using online aliases to suborn and seduce various men, including adult workers, celebrities, and work colleagues. Snippets of the story about a mysterious celebrity agent called Martin Branning had appeared in the weekly Pop Bitch newsletter, along with anonymised rumours of bullying behaviour in Private Eye. Both Dan and Tom had worked alongside Wootton in the News of the World before it was closed down. I'd first met Tom over a decade ago during the phone hacking scandal, which was my first introduction to the dark world of modern British journalism. At the town hall meeting in 2011 in July, when Rebecca Brooks told staff she was closing down one of the oldest English newspapers in the world, Tom was one of the few staff brave enough to stand up to the chief executive of the then News International, criticising her for the decisions that had led to the paper's demise. Tom told me about his concerns for his friend and colleague Dan Evans, who had disappeared during The Guardian's revelations about phone hacking 2 years earlier. Didn't meet Dan until 2013 when I covered the epic phone hacking trial at the Old Bailey. Again, if you're from the UK, we all know about the phone hacking scandal. It was huge. And it was absolutely crazy of how many people actually got away with the stuff that they were doing. Dan had sued his Murdoch lawyers and became a witness of the truth for the prosecution. His evidence was probably key to the conviction of his former editor, Andy Coulson, who'd been Prime Minister David Cameron's head of communications and Number 10. As such, Dan was the major target of Coulson's willy defence barrister, but he stood up to the cross-examination in the witness box with wit and dignity, and I believed every word he said. Together with another former News of the World reporter, Graham Johnson, Dan went on to form Byline Investigates. They both remain the only two journalists who confessed to phone hacking, and their evidence and civil claims for the last decade. My phone keeps going off, excuse me. There must have been hundreds of other journalists who never came clean. Knowing their track records, I was sure that if any two journalists could get to the truth of this strange modern tale of catfishing and potential revenge, it would be Dan and Tom. Hard-working, adept at getting people to talk, and not averse to burning through a lot of shoe leather with door knocking and source handling, they already had a stash of interviews and emails and texts. But we all agreed it was a disturbing and high-risk story, suggesting some of these catfish tapes were non-consensual and could be used to compromise and coerce, and that it might take many more months to get all the receipts. We went away and worked on other things. Then, while I was at the Byline Festival in Darlington Hall in Devon this year, in July, all hell broke loose. The War of TV Presenters. It started as a tabloid tale which I barely paid attention to, rumours circulating about the private life of this morning presenter, Philip Schofield, who only recently had come out as gay, and to my knowledge as well, it was actually Dan Wootton who said, you either come out as gay or I'm going to report on it. Which again, typical of Dan Wootton, to bully someone and basically blackmail someone into doing something they didn't want to do. When he resigned, I didn't really understand what exactly had gone on, but it was clear to me that with the current government almost comatose and flatlined in the opinion polls, the media was in a feeding frenzy and in this case, eating itself, which it was. The sense of media rivalry became even more acute when The Sun led to its front page with allegations that an unnamed BBC presenter had been engaged in online activities with a young person which it initially suggested, but then withdrew, had broken the law. When after days of speculation, Hugh Edwards' wife came forward to reveal he was a target of this story and had been hospitalised, the stench of trial by media and character assassination was hard to dispel. We've gone over character assassination and trial by media for, I don't know, the last 3, maybe 4, actually longer than that now, 3, 4, the last 5 years on this channel. And it's sad because this day and age, everyone is guilty until proven innocent. Again, when you got a lot of evidence, it's like, right, okay, then that person's guilty. But when you literally have no evidence and they go out and you just try and destroy someone, come on. That's not how it goes. But again, no, this is social media and it's how it is. People do it just to make themselves feel better. It was in this toxic atmosphere of sanctimony and sleaze that various people who knew about the allegations about Dan Wootton and had seen his intervention in the Schofield affair in his Mail Online column began to come forward, perhaps stirred by a sense of injustice, if not simply hypocrisy. By this point, Tom and Dan had already compiled a 28-page dossier, and it is not for the journalists investigating to make any judgment on whether any had taken place, but they had a duty of care to people they considered potential victims. 1000% correct. We sent the first article to GB News, News UK, Mail Online, and Wootton's lawyers in its entirety for comments before publication on the 17th of July. From then on, we were pretty much assailed with long legal letters, the number of lawyers and their assistants CC'd in on the emails, often outnumbering the entire Byline Times staff. That part there is absolutely just insane. By reading through the voluminous, confidential, not for publication PDFs, it was apparent that at no point did Wootton's representatives deny he controlled the aliases of Martin Branning or another female avatar used to approach heterosexual male targets Maria Joseph. That was the heart of our story, and despite the headwind of legal peril, we went on. More witnesses came forward. More evidence accumulated. Then Dan Wootton appeared on his 9 p.m. show and finally addressed our journalism. He claimed it was a smear campaign by dark forces, attempting to subvert democracy and his channel. 2 days later, Dan Evans noticed someone was trying to access our online documents, and Tom Latcham woke up to find the window of his car smeared with something that looked like the crimson red stuff that flowed through our body. The next day, we received an email from someone saying, "There will be blood," in the newsroom. The day after, I was told, "You'll regret this, Peter," in an unsolicited phone call. All incidents have been reported to the police. Of course, investigative journalists have to get used to legal threats and have also experienced threats of violence and phishing attempts when covering Russian interference in our political system. But the combination of both at the same time was disturbing. The silence of the lambs. The Wootton scandal is not naturally something I or our editor Hardeep Mathuru would have thought would be a big story on Byline Times. With its combination of sex, lies and videotapes, the story would have seemed to be natural fodder for the tabloids. Exactly, The Sun, Daily Mail, but none of them did it, did they? None of them thought, "Oh, you know what? We need to cover this." Why? What are they hiding that they know about this situation? Much bigger splash for them than the private difficulties of Philip Schofield or Hugh Edwards. So the natural question is, apart from a few stories about Wootton being investigated by News UK and suspended by Mail Online, why is the rest of the media being so quiet? Our headline this edition is "Without Fear or Favour." So is it fear or favour that make the Wootton scandal a no-go area for everyone else? It's a bit of both. The legal challenges are intimidating. Though the allegations are firmly in the public interest, they do invoke privacy issues, mainly because they allege gross privacy intrusion, exactly, voyeurism. That's one of the biggest ones, and like I said, is a minimum of 2-year sentence in prison. Wootton changed lawyers after a week or so, which we also covered, but not before his old ones had sent letters to all the major news organisations misrepresenting our work and muttering about injunctive relief. To be fair to other news organisations, they don't have Tom and Dan and 3 years of research to back their stories up, and newspapers tend to ignore other newspapers' exclusives unless they're forced by public outrage to cover them. Again, there's so much public outrage about this, why isn't anyone else covering it? But more than anything, this reminds me of the Whittingdale story in 2016, which in many ways was the progenitor of Byline Times. For over a year, rumours had been circulating about the then Culture Minister John Whittingdale and his relationship with the dominatrix. His personal affairs surely are not a matter of public interest. The problem was, as Jim Cusick subsequently explained on our crowdfunding site byline.com, at least 4 news organisations had known of the relationship, had pictures snapped of the couple, and gone to him for comment. Each time, despite editors and journalists protesting, they would publish, the story never emerged. I wonder why. However, perhaps coincidentally, on each occasion, Whittingdale changed his tune when it came to press regulation and limiting the reach and power of the BBC. Again, the BBC here in this, obviously in this country, it is funded by the public. So with him going to them and saying, "I'm going to limit you to what you've done," it just sucks. That is the key problem with the proprietors and senior executives of other news organisations when it comes to covering the Wootton story. They are either historically complicit, scared of what information the former Sun and Mail Online columnists might still hold on them, or worried about their future working relationship with Wootton and current GB News employers. Which, that's just bullshit. You know, because if these other publications are like that, that just goes to show none of them have got a back spine. None of them. Because this is serious. This is what I really, really hate about this country with the media. If it's not, if it's not going to help them, if it's not going to propel their media stories forward, anything, they just don't cover it. This has got public outrage because this shows a guy who is using money from his companies, which again, straight away, that's fraud, to pay people, who's just trying to record people without their consent, doing doing the dirty deed, having fun with someone, and then he's there probably watching it in his kitchen, in the corner, with a hanky in hand, doing all Mr. Tug. And seeing that, and then no one is going to cover it, it's like, come on. They are scared of what he has. That's how I look at it. It's not just like, oh yeah, we don't want to cover that story. No, I really do think that with everything we have seen about Wootton, he's got stuff on people. That's what's currently going on with all of this. That's what I think as well. The Silence of the Lambs, whatever happens with this saga, and I'm sure there are many more twists and turns to come, this silence will haunt me and remind me why, in the face of legal and physical threats, we must continue saying what the papers don't say, reporting on stories other media organizations deliberately bury or ignore. And this is what we got by here. We got the photo of the two guys, of Tom Latcham and Dan Evans. These are the two guys who have broken this story. And I think these guys are absolutely amazing because they have done so much greatness with all of this, And it's mind-blowing to see that these other papers are not taking anything, no initiative to go forward and cover it. I really do think that they are scared and that Wootton does have something on him. But that's for this video here, guys. We do have more coming this week. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for future updates, and I'll see you soon.